I did mine on the Zydeco Marathon of 2021 uh, to kind of show it off. Um, it was from March 12th to March 14th. It was over the span of about 3 days, an entire weekend. It started off on a Friday, March 12th, where people would go to Rock and Bowl to go pick up their packets. Their packets kind of included uh, typically it's in a bag that says Zydeco on it. It has like a water or something like that in it. Just different little, it's kind of like a swag bag or goodies that they kind of give out to the community, uh, everything like that. And then Saturday was the main thing, was the big expo. So that's when businesses were all set up and everything like that to kind of really facilitate and to sell their products. So different run specialty stores like Try Running and Go Run was there. And there was this company that was selling kind of like little water supplements things from a plant based out of Africa that was supposed to be really good with electrolytes and whatnot. So they get a bunch of different vendors and things like that to kind of fill out the room and give it being kind of worth it. And then Sunday was the race day. That makes sense. And that's when people started doing their races. They had a 5K, they had a one marathon, a 1 mile sprint, a 5K, a half marathon, a full marathon, and then a relay for the half marathon as well. This is kind of the map for the half marathon and full marathon. The full marathon was just another loop. So they would do this entire race and then do it once more. And it starts downtown Lafayette, and then it brings you back to downtown Lafayette. It's a full kind of loop in that sense. It brings you around Bendel Gardens, and I think it brings you next to Sorority and Fraternity Row as well, right by Cajun Dome. So it kind of brings you around a lot of Lafayette. It starts really early. They have cops and everything like that to make sure everyone's safe. But how do they do that in a full pandemic, right? That's the hard thing, because the last Zydeco marathon that happened was in 2020, was about 5 days before GBE announced a lockdown for everyone. So this was kind of like the last in-person race. So they had a lot of time to kind of prepare, to say the least, because they were seeing how everything was going on. There was a lot of virtual races over the summer and into the fall. And while a lot of people did enjoy them, it's not that same race atmosphere that people put in, because these things cost hundreds of dollars for you to even participate in. And people didn't feel that same connection for it. So one of the things that they had to do right off the bat was to figure out their kind of runner's guide for their COVID. So they released this on their Facebook, was where they really pushed it out on. And it was just a link to show them about every single step that they were going to do to have precautionary measures for it. So the expo featured, when you walked in, there was temperature guns there to check everyone's temperatures, make sure everyone was safe. And then everyone had to wear a mask, workers included. And then they would climb themselves upstairs, go pick up their packet, go through the expo. And the expo was designed in a U shape to allow constant movement between the participants, so that there was no high traffic areas or anything like that. And then they would leave through a different exit other than the doorway that they first came in from. So there was a constant flow of people. And that's how they kind of got, they could do the best for their Zydeco marathon, for the expo for that. And then the race day, they didn't have pacers. Pacers are people who run within the group that have a certain time. So if you're trying to make a goal of a 10-minute mile, they'll have 10 minutes on top of their head on kind of behind a sign. But it encourages people to run together, and they're trying to distance people from that. So they didn't have those. Water stations, typically people are set up and they're handing out water with their hands so that runners can just easily take it while they're continuing, so they don't have to stop and grab it. They didn't do that. Instead, they just kind of had a table where waters are spaced out so they can kind of grab it and keep running, and then throw it on the side. And then runners had to wear their masks when they initially, until they crossed the start line. And then when they crossed back over the finish line, they had to put it back on. That was just kind of their rule. But when they were running during the race, they did not have to have the mask. And they're all encouraged to socially distance as much as they can. One of the other things that to really garner hype for this and get more attention, other than just the Lafayette community, the marketing director, he went on the Houston Running Zone podcast. Personally, I never really heard about it until this, but seems to be a little bit bigger market, Houston, that is, because Houston has their own really big marathon, and they're trying to get some of the attention from over there to come to Lafayette. And he talked about all their safety provisions and everything like that. And then the main thing I want to show up is that their kind of slogan was mask up, lace up, let's do this. That's something that they kind of had across every single social media post, anything like that. It was mainly Facebook. They did have a few Instagram posts, but not nearly as much as Facebook. So to see if this was a real success or not, I thought the best thing to do for it was to ask people who are actually directly involved with it. So I reached out to their title sponsor, which is Go Run. They were kind of on their names on everything like that, and see if they were satisfied and everything like that. A first-time runner, a veteran runner, she ran every single Zydeco marathon since 2014. And then the race coordinator, Michelle Wolf. Unfortunately, Michelle did not get back to me in time. She actually got back to me today, and I was like, oh, you're just a few hours too late. And then I couldn't really work in her answers and things like that into my case study. But ultimately, a little breakdown, everything. Everyone enjoyed it. They thought it was really good. They felt really safe. One person did feel like they should have encouraged people wearing their masks a little bit more at the end of the race than what they really did. But that's always that's always hard to kind of enforce, especially if it's outside. And then finally, for the future of the Zydeco, this is kind of more of a tangent. So the numbers wise, they did experience a 10% decrease from the previous year. However, I'm going to make an argument that no matter what, COVID or not, they're going to have this decrease. I went through and I charted every single participant from since 2016. I couldn't get the 2014 and 2015 numbers, but if you can see, there's a sharp decrease, and it's been like that every single year. It has a lot to do with the company itself. I find I think the race is put on really well, but numbers kind of don't lie, in my opinion. I kind of showed the big thing I wanted to highlight here is the 5K. The 5K and everything's decreasing. That is drastically increasing. They introduced it in 2020. So I would be really interested to see if they increased it from there. Not in the interview, but after I kind of did everything. So this is kind of off the record. I was talking more with the major sponsor about how they perceive this drastically decrease in the marathon. And they found that it was actually, that they saw it as more of a higher up issue, the board of directors not being as good, but also they believe that they want it to be a more Lafayette specific race. They actually don't want to branch out, and they like this more smaller race vibe to it, which I don't know, researching this and all that, I think it could be a lot bigger, especially if they kind of hone in on that 5K. It seems like a lot of runners really receive that really well. But ultimately, a lot of their numbers was down, but for everything they did, I do think this was a success. They were able to have everything, and they, but when Michelle did get back to me, she did mention that they didn't have any direct COVID cases linked to their race, as reported.